Okay, hi everyone. Today I'm reading. Well, gonna be speaking about a verse I read last night, and it's Luke chapter 10, verse 17 to 23. I can't read it for obvious reasons. I'm I'm driving, so I can't do that. And it's also like a long chapter, and I think y'all can go read it for yourselves, right? But in summary, Jesus has sent out the apostles. They've come back and they are excited to learn that when they use the name of Christ, then evil principalities and demons are subjected to them. And they rejoice in this. And Jesus tells them not to rejoice in having power over principalities, but rather to rejoice in that their names are written in heaven. And Jesus goes on to say that they won't be harmed, that we have been given authority to trample upon scorpions, serpents, and any evil entities, any enemies who go against us, and they'll never harm us because we are of God. And Jesus furthermore tells us about how the knowledge of God and certain secrets, that's how I interpret it, certain secrets of the universe are actually hidden to the wise and intellect, which is the people who believe that they know everything, that somehow they don't need to learn from another person, that wherever they are in life, they've gotten there by their own works and by their own deeds, and all they need is them. And he further explains that these secrets are actually given to children, people who are childlike. And a childlike person is someone who understands authority and where they stand with authority, number one. It's someone who's always in learning, right? Whatever you participate in, you see it as a class, that there's something that you have to learn, there's a test that you have to pass, and learning from your past mistakes, right? And that's how we're able to move forward in life. And we've all seen examples of people in our lives, and sometimes we can be that example to ourselves, where we see ourselves going round and round in circles. And we've seen this example in the Bible of Israel coming out of Egypt, and they were walking in circles for 40 years, never reaching the promised land, because their mindsets were so fixated on, oh my gosh, Moses, you shouldn't have taken us away from Egypt because it's better than where we are now. And how many times have I also been in a place where I'm like, okay, it seems like the suffering that I was going through, or the slavery that I was part of, seems to be better than this notion and this project of God, right? But when we're done with our shenanigans and we have learned our lessons, then we see the reality of how God is actually better than any circumstance in life. And we can't rejoice in another person's downfall, regardless of what they have done to us, because we see how easy it is for the universe to give us that same test that we're judging in another person. And what I found in myself where I've judged another person too quickly is that I easily find myself in the same situation and actually do worse than them. And this gives you a new level of humbleness and respect for such people that I may judge. So the notion of Jesus telling us not to rejoice in that is that anyway, us trampling on serpents and enemies, us subduing the enemy, is of the power of God. And we are just the vessels that God uses to show that power. That's why I always go back to that. The life we're living is God experiencing life through us. That's why God is in each and every one of us. And no matter where someone is on their path, we can never judge them because God is there in them. And we don't know the grand scheme of what divine is trying to do through us, and whether this is just a play, whether this is divine trying to understand even who divine itself is, therefore plays out this three-dimensional space activity with us. I don't know that, but it's clear for me that we can't rejoice for another person's downfall. We cannot even rejoice in the power or the authority we may be put in. And because the authority we are put in is by the power of divine. For the longest time, I never understood the misfortunes and failures I experienced during my wilderness, and judged it as God doesn't love me. However, I made a video about how God refines us in the wilderness and the actions that he takes for that, number one. Secondly, an example of this is Job, where Satan brings forward in spiritual court, that, okay, you say that Job is loyal, but isn't it easy to be loyal to someone who gives abundantly, someone who always protects you, someone who's always there for you, and that is what you actually experience and see? So God puts Satan up to the work of, then do whatever you want to him, except killing him. And that will prove to you that Job is faithful. And mind you, Satan saying this in the spiritual court is that not only is he communicating with God alone, but every other angel being can hear this. Meaning already Satan is trying to create a case against faithful people of God. And if Satan is successful in this, then he's able to get more angels to come onto his side, right? Because if you think of it too, that God always spoils this person and gives this person whatever they want, of course they'll be loyal to him, right? And if you bring this up to God and God is like, no, you don't have to test him, just believe me, then it's easy for God to actually lose numbers. Because then what is God hiding by not allowing Job to go through hardship to prove his faithfulness? And that's what we go through the wilderness. We become Job, in that we start to lose everything. We start to even doubt ourselves. And we even start to complain. Natty loves to tell me that, okay, you complain, but at the end of the day, you do it. You do what divine asks you to do. And that's the difference between you and another person who just complains and does nothing. And when you read Job, it's a lot of Job's there's parts where his friends talk to him, but a lot of the times Job is complaining about God. What have you done to me? Why have you allowed this to happen to me? But even when he complains, he doesn't lose faith in divine. And that proves that he actually deserves the abundance, the protection, the never-ending glory and authority that he lives in. Because even when he didn't have anything, he still prayed to God. When he had something to complain about, he complained to God and never turned his back on divine. So we are put to the test to say, even when we're not getting what we want, are we still going to be loyal to the divine? Because we see it many times. People who betray us show us that, no, you're not giving me what I want, so I'm leaving. I don't want you in my life. And that is fine. We don't judge them for that. But however, when things are not going your way as the betrayer and you come back, you have to think to yourself, like, then am I the worthy one to bring myself back? And the nice thing about humans, they might reject you. And it is up to them. It's their free will. But you can always go back to God. And divine will never reject your pretenses to come back.